All right, you guys, what is up? Today I have a hip openers yoga routine for you. I'm super excited to share this. It is amazing to help open your hips. We sit all day and our hips just get super tight, so this helps to alleviate any pain, tension, and let's get started with this walkthrough. All right, time to dig into our hip openers yoga walkthrough. I'll show you all the movements and some proper form, and then we'll do the whole thing holding the poses all together. So starting out, we have a wide child's pose. So if you've ever done any sort of yoga, you're probably familiar with this pose. Normally, people will do yoga pose with their knees together. Since we're doing a wide child's pose, you're gonna bring your knees a little wider than your hips here. So my knees are in a V. I'm gonna reach nice and tall and slowly walk myself forward, walking my fingertips forward, and press my chest down into the mat so I can really sink my bottom in between my hips. So by releasing here, I can feel the tension in my hips being released. And if you need to walk your knees out even further, you can do so, but we're gonna sink into that pose. From there, we're going to go into a runner's lunge. So we'll do each side separately. We're gonna start with the right leg first and bring one hand on either side of our foot to frame it, and then press up so that back leg is straight. And then we're gonna lift our chest here, sinking into this pose so I can really feel this through my hip. If you need to drop that back knee, you can uncurl your toes and still get that stretch into the hip flexor by kind of pressing that back hip forward. So that is a modification. If you want to take it up to a standing runner's lunge, you can do that too, but find what feels right for you. And then of course, we'll switch sides and we'll do the other side. From there, we're gonna go into a pigeon pose. So this one, make sure you go into it carefully. This one can be this is a deep stretch. So I'm gonna bring my left leg out in front of my hip to a 90-degree angle. So ankle, knee, right in front of me. If you wanna bring your knee out in line with your hip and bend your back leg, that's fine. This is probably the easiest way to do this. If you're able to, bring your leg back even further behind you and straighten it so that we can dig deeper into our hip flexors. So depending on what works best for you, if you wanna bring your knee back here, that's okay. Find what works for you. And if you wanna make that even more challenging, the most challenging, you can even do a forward fold into your pigeon pose and really feel a deep stretch through the outside of that leg and through your hips. So that is your pigeon pose. And of course, we will switch sides and take it to the other side and do that for a minute. And then from there, we are going to do what's called shin to shin. So when you're sitting, crisscross applesauce, Indian style, whatever you like to call it, normally you're sitting like this with both of your feet tucked under. For this one, bear with me. Do as much as you can. I know this one can be a little difficult for some people. We're gonna place first my left ankle on top of my right knee. You can go further if you're more flexible, or maybe closer to your shin if you're less flexible. And then bring yourself back to that same position, reach nice and tall, and forward fold in this position. You can walk your hands out to however far you can reach, and then from there, we're going to switch and just simply place that right ankle on your left knee. After that, we have what's called a bound angle pose. So this looks somewhat like a butterfly or a squished diamond, but we're going to bring our feet together like a book, bring your heels close to your hip bones, and then from there, we're going to pull out the flesh from underneath our bottom, reach nice and tall, and forward fold into this pose. This one's a super deep pose, so if this is straining, do not go all the way down. Just go as simply as far as your body will let you. If you need to make it easier, you can always walk your feet out also. From there, we have a frog pose. Now, this one looks a little funny, but you literally look like a frog. So we're gonna squat into our frog pose. If you need support, you can put your hands down. So I actually look like a frog right now. If you are able to, you can release your hands and press your palms together, even pressing your knees out with your elbows, but if that's too much, keep your hands here. If you need to work a little higher up, you can do so there. So those are the movements. You've seen them. Let's do this routine all together. All right, you guys, you have seen the demo, hopefully. So we are going to now get into our hip openers yoga routine. So each one of these movements we're gonna hold for a long time, but that's to really help you release your hips. We have this muscle called a psoas muscle, and it wraps around our lower body. So it's super important that we stretch out our hip muscles, because as our hips curl in, the rest of our body starts to curl in too. And it's good to release those hip muscles, relax those muscles, and help release all that tension. So let's get started. We're gonna do our wide child's pose. We're gonna hold this for a minute, and starting in 3, 2, 1, and go ahead and reach. So walk those hands forward nice and slow. Remember, our traditional yoga pose has both knees underneath our chest. This one, I have one knee on either side of my upper body, and I'm really gonna sink my seat nice and low into this pose. So notice that your hips probably feel the tightness here. You can feel some tension in the hips. If you need to lift the hips up a little bit higher and slowly ease into it, make sure you're listening to your body. We don't want you to hurt anything. So it's super important to ease into these stretches and do only as much as you are allowed to based on what your body says. So I'm gonna sink nice and low here, really spread my palms, dig my palms into the ground, and take some deep breaths while you're here. You're gonna be in each of these poses for a while, so try to get comfortable, try to find that sweet spot, and just breathe and let it out. We got 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Come up nice and slow, carefully, slowly, and from there we're gonna go right into our runner's lunge. So starting with the right side, I'm gonna bring that right leg through, placing one hand on either side of my foot and pressing that back leg up nice and straight. Just a minute hold here. So notice that my knee is in line with my ankle, and I have a nice straight back leg here. So my toes are curled under in the back. Remember, there's a couple modifications here. So if you can't take this runner stretch, this is too much, then you can drop that back knee and uncurl the toes. But try to keep your chest lifted and your shoulders back. It's really important that you're being careful with your hip flexor. I know it gets super tight, so we want to release that hip flexor, but you want to do only as much as your body will let you. If you want to take it even higher, coming back to that straight leg, you can even work from a standing position. And as you sink your bottom a little bit lower into this lunge, you'll really feel it through that hip flexor. So I'm going to take it back to both hands framing the foot, and make sure that my back leg is straight and my knee is not going over my toes, because that is super important. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. All right, time for that other side. So we're just gonna switch it out this time. Left foot, and ready, and go. So same thing, just gotta even out both sides. And make sure you're giving just as much effort and attention to both legs with each of these. So some of these we're doing both the right and the left side. We gotta make sure we're even. Although our body's not normally even, but we want to try to stretch out both sides. Again, if you wanna take it up to the top, you can take it up high. If you want to come back low, release that back knee and uncurl those toes. And if you're uncurling those toes and you're doing it this way, as you sit up, you'll notice that you feel this even more in the hip flexor, because as you're sitting up, you're sinking even deeper, and my butt is pushing down, so I can feel the release here. It's definitely super tight in there. We do a lot of sitting, so this really gets our hips nice and tight, so we gotta release that. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Go ahead and slowly release out of that. And from here, we're going to take it into Pigeon Pose. If you haven't done Pigeon Pose, this one is a super deep stretch. So just be careful with it and be mindful of what you can do. Not what I'm doing, but what you can do. So I'm gonna bring my right leg through. I'm gonna start with my right leg, bring my knee in line with my hip, and then try to bring my feet to 90 degrees. And we're gonna curl the back leg under. If that's also too much, then you can work from a pose like this, but the goal is to keep your hips squared so that we can really stretch into this hip muscle. So I'm gonna go into my pigeon pose, and we are going to hold for a minute here. So notice that I am folding over here. This is definitely more of a challenging add-on to this stretch. If you do not want to fold over, you do not have to. You can definitely work from up here. Again, you can curl that back knee in, and you can also curl this front ankle in closer to you. So really releasing here. I'm gonna go back to this fold over. And we're gonna slowly come up. We're almost out of this, just a couple more seconds. We're gonna hold on to this pose. We have some nice music in the background, just for you to enjoy while we're in this pose. And then slowly walk it back up to the top. So nice and slow. If you're already there, you can stay there. We're just going to switch out our legs and take this pigeon pose from the left side. So again, the left knee comes in line with your hip, ankle straight out. If you need to curl that ankle in a little bit, that is okay. Bring this left knee out in line with your hip, slightly behind, or even straight and behind you, keeping those hips squared. And go ahead and hold. We're gonna hold this for a minute here. So doing those modifications as you see fit for your body. If you feel like you can slowly wedge your leg up so that that ankle is in line with that knee, you can give it a try. But again, everything super controlled, super slow here. We want to make sure that we are doing right by our body and not angering any of our muscles or triggering any aches and pains. So we want to make sure our hips are tucked. I can really feel the release through my hip muscle here. If you want to make this even more challenging, like before, you can walk your hands out and do even a little fold over. If you want to do a partial fold over, you can just keep your hands here, maybe add a little bend through the elbows. That's okay. Making sure to keep, like you're trying to put your weight into that right hip so that you can feel the right hip lowering towards that mat. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Go ahead and come out of that. From there, make sure you are going slow. That was maybe a weird way to come out of that. So go nice and slow when you're getting out of that pigeon pose. However, you are able to carefully get out of that. So now we are doing our shin to shin pose. So naturally, if you're sitting crisscross, this is how you normally sit. Again, we'll start with the left ankle on top of the right knee. If you need to pull it slightly further out, if that's what you're able to do, you can do so. Starting with the left leg on top, we're going to do shin to shin pose, pulling out some of the flesh from under our hips so we're really nice and grounded here. Reach nice and tall, a minute with this leg on the top, and slowly lower and holding here. So make sure you are getting some nice deep breaths in here, fueling those muscles with oxygen. If you need to work up from a little bit of a higher place, you can work from up here or as far as however far your body will let you. So I can really feel the release through my hips. So and maybe add a little bit of an extra walk through the fingers if you're able to go further. If you need, you can always sit up top. If this is enough of a stretch, sorry, the grass is kind of out of control here. If you need to sit up and you just want to do a slight hinge from the hips, that's okay too. Remember, this is your stretch. So do however far as your body will let you. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Go ahead and sit it up. Come back to neutral. Uncross those legs, maybe shake them out if you need. Just always coming back to neutral, it's super important. And this time we will have our left leg on top. Nope, I think we just had the left leg on top. We'll do our right leg on top. So right leg comes on top. So shin to shin, so I have my shins lined up here. Reach nice and tall, tall, and fold at the very last second. And get that nice deep stretch in here. Feel free to zone out. We're counting for you, so you don't have to count. If you want to work up a little bit higher, that's okay. Again, just that slight hinge at the hips. You can really feel it, making sure to pull out any flesh from under your hips. Sinking nice and deep into this stretch. I know I can really feel the release in my hips, and this is going to feel so good after. Even though it may not feel amazing right now, you will feel great later, and your body will thank you. Just sinking deeper and deeper into it. And the longer you're in this stretch, the more your muscles will start to relax. So you're kind of breaking up that sticky feeling in there. So adding some nice deep breaths in there. And adding some deep breaths too helps you sink deeper into the pose. So those breaths are important. Using your oxygen. 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Go ahead and sit it up nice and slow. Again, you can bring those legs back to neutral just to shake them out a little bit. Now our bound angle pose. So this could look like a diamond for you. We're gonna go into more of a butterfly style and bring my feet, soles of my feet together. And I'm gonna sit up again, maybe pull that flesh out. And for a minute, we're going to hold this pose right here. So just 60 seconds in this pose. If you want to, you can always add the hinge forward in any of these movements. If you don't want to hinge, you definitely don't have to. So feet are together. I know I can feel this. I'm gonna flap my wings a little bit, fly away. Maybe we're gonna fly somewhere to Europe maybe. And I'm gonna reach nice and tall and slowly add a little fold over here for an extra challenge. Again, this is optional. And breathe into this here. Again, if you need to modify, you can always walk your legs out a little bit further. If you feel like it's not enough, you can always bring the feet in a little bit closer and add that hinge. Let's breathe together. Inhale and exhale. We're gonna take it back up to the top for 3, 2, and 1. Beautiful. One last pose. Now time for our frog pose. So making sure that you are transitioning from each pose and being super careful because these movements are really deep stretches for the muscles. So safety is important always. So now for our frog pose, we're gonna bring our feet a little bit wider than our hips here, and we're going to sink into our pose as much as we can. So there's a couple ways to do this. If you wanna bring your feet a little bit wider, if you're able to bring your elbows to your knees and press your palms together, you'll add an even deeper press, and I'm pressing my knees out. So notice that my palms are pressed while my elbows are pressing my knees back. That might be too much, and that's okay. If you want to bring your hands for support down to the ground as you're doing this pose, that's okay too. We have a minute in this pose total, so try to get comfortable because it might not be very comfortable. If you need to work up a little bit higher, that's okay too. If you need to bring your legs a little wider apart, that's okay. Just find whatever you can do here. That's the biggest thing. So we're gonna go back to this palm press for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and go ahead and release. And I'm gonna come down to my bottom and bring my legs in front. And just to neutralize your legs, since you've been doing so much work in the hips, we're just gonna do our windshield wipers and do our knees back and forth, just kind of neutralize here. And that was your hip openers yoga. I really hope you guys enjoyed that stretch. I know I could feel everything was super sticky there. Really important to be stretching your hips. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We have a lot more stretches for you. Coach Mare is amazing. She has some amazing workouts, abs, breathing, whatever you want. So check those out, and we'll see you guys next time.